The red carpet in the school auditorium seemed endless. Paulina walked to her seat in the front row, feeling dozens of eyes on her. Over 16 years as a stepmother, she had grown used to special attention, not hostile, but watchful, as if everyone was waiting for her to reveal her true colors. "Paulina, you look flawless as always," cooed Inga's classmate's mother as she sat down beside her. "And that dress is gorgeous. The hairstyle too. Where's Daniel?" Parking the car, Paulina replied, adjusting her purse. "You know how hard it is to find a spot here." In reality, Daniel had already driven around the school twice, just as nervous as he had been on their wedding day. The graduation of his beloved daughter was an event he had been preparing for months. He bought a suit, rehearsed a speech, and carefully chose a gift. Paulina smiled, remembering how her husband had asked for the 100th time the night before whether the earrings they chose for their daughter were too expensive. "She's our precious girl," she had answered him every time. "Nothing is too much for her." And it was true. In 16 years, Paulina had never once regretted the appearance of a 1-year-old girl with huge gray eyes and a stubborn personality in her life. At first, it had been difficult. Inga cried at night, called for her mother, and pushed Paulina away. But patience and love had done their work. Or at least it seemed that they had. Paulina glanced at her watch. 10 minutes remained before the ceremony began. Nina still hadn't arrived. Since early morning, Inga had been unable to sit still. Every half hour she called her mother, asking whether she would make it to the ceremony on time. The woman had promised her daughter she would arrive before it started, but from the tone of her voice, Paulina knew the promises would once again remain only promises. "Where's Nina?" asked Marina Viktorovna, who was sitting nearby and looking around. "Inga has been waiting for her so much." "She should be here soon," Paulina replied calmly, though everything inside her tightened. 16 years of the same story. Nina was late for birthdays, missed parent-teacher meetings, skipped school concerts, and then appeared at the worst possible moment with a bouquet of wilted flowers and excuses about traffic, work, or household chores. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. The graduates began walking onto the stage. Paulina found Inga in the crowd. Tall, slender, wearing the white dress they had chosen together. The girl looked beautiful, but she was clearly nervous. Paulina could see her stepdaughter constantly glancing toward the entrance, searching the crowd for a familiar figure. "Excuse me, may I get through?" Slightly out of breath, Daniel squeezed between the rows carrying a huge bouquet of roses. "You finally made it." Paulina took her husband's hand. "It's just starting." "Did she come?" he asked quietly. Paulina shook her head. Daniel clenched his teeth in frustration. He was always angry when Nina let their daughter down, but he never spoke about it in front of Inga. The ceremony lasted almost 2 hours. Awards, certificates, and speeches of gratitude followed. Inga received a gold medal and an award for the best essay. Paulina had always been proud of her talent for languages and literature. When her daughter walked onto the stage, Daniel squeezed his wife's hand tightly. "Our smart girl," he whispered. "Our girl. Our." Throughout all the years of their marriage, Paulina had never once heard her husband say, "my daughter." It was always "our daughter." And she believed in that word, our. She built her life around it, her plans, her happiness as a mother. When the official ceremony ended, the parents immediately rushed toward their children. Paulina looked at Inga. Her eyes were still wandering around the hall. The girl was searching and waiting. "Sweetheart." Paulina approached her stepdaughter with a bouquet of flowers. "Congratulations, my dear. You were wonderful." "Thank you." Inga accepted the flowers and forced a smile. "And Mom? Has Mom still not arrived?" "She should be here soon," Paulina lied, as she had lied hundreds of times before, covering for Nina's indifference. The reception was held in the neighboring hall. Graduates took pictures, parents exchanged impressions, and teachers accepted congratulations. Paulina stayed close to her stepdaughter, who took out her phone every 5 minutes and dialed her mother's number. She's not answering, the girl muttered, holding back tears. Maybe her phone died, Daniil suggested, unable to hide his irritation. Or she got stuck in traffic, Paulina added. You know what the roads are like right now. Inga nodded, but Paulina understood that the girl no longer believed those excuses. Neither did she. Over 16 years, she had memorized every excuse Nina ever used: traffic jams, emergencies at work, sick younger children, car trouble. There was always a reason not to show up when her daughter needed her most. Inga. One of her friends ran up to them. Come on, let's take pictures. Parents, you too. The next half hour was devoted to a photo session. Paulina smiled at the camera, hugged her stepdaughter, and posed beside Daniil. But her thoughts were elsewhere. She remembered every one of Inga's birthdays, every kindergarten performance, every parent-teacher conference. She remembered buying her first school backpack, taking her to tutors, staying awake through the nights when she was sick. And then Nina would appear with her usual, "Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't make it, but I love you so much." And somehow all of Paulina's motherhood seemed to be erased. Mom! Suddenly Inga shouted. Paulina turned around and saw Daniil's ex-wife standing in the doorway. Nina looked much younger than her age. In her hands was a bouquet of cheap tulips. My baby girl. Nina opened her arms, and Inga rushed toward her, forgetting everything else in the world. The sight made Paulina's heart ache. Her stepdaughter had never run toward her like that. Never glowed with happiness at her appearance. I'm sorry I'm late, Nina rattled on while kissing her daughter's cheeks. Dima came down with a fever. I had to take him to the doctor, then to the pharmacy. And then there was terrible traffic. It's okay, Inga interrupted her. The important thing is that you came. I waited for you so much. Paulina looked away. Apparently understanding his wife's feelings, Daniil placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay, he whispered. Don't pay attention. But nothing was okay. For the first time, Paulina clearly saw the situation from the outside. Nina basked in her daughter's love, accepted her gratitude and hugs, while the stepmother stood off to the side like a random witness to someone else's family happiness. Mom, look at the earrings Paulina and Dad gave me. Inga showed off the jewelry. Real diamonds. Very pretty, Nina nodded after barely glancing at them. But I have a gift for you too. She opened her purse and took out a small box. Inside was a bracelet with imitation stones. Mom, it's beautiful. It's the best gift I've ever received. Inga exclaimed excitedly. And Paulina realized that it wasn't an act. The girl was genuinely happy with any gesture from her mother. I picked it out myself, Nina said proudly. I kept thinking and thinking about what to give my girl on such an important day, and then I found the perfect thing. Paulina barely stopped herself from laughing. She had spent 2 months choosing earrings for Inga, visited 3 different jewelry stores, and consulted experts. Nina had thought and bought a cheap trinket from an underground passage for a few dollars. But she was Mom. You know, Mom, Inga suddenly said, wrapping an arm around Nina's waist, I'm so happy you came. Because you're my real mother, and your love means more to me than anything else in the world. I would give up everything just to have you beside me. She said it loudly enough that several nearby parents turned around. Paulina felt her face burn. Don't ever think otherwise. No one could ever replace you. And a stepmother is nobody to me. Just a stranger. I know that my mother loves me, and I love only her. At that moment, Paulina understood that 16 years of her life had been crossed out. That all her motherhood had been an illusion. That to Inga she had always remained a stranger who simply lived in the same house as her father. Inga, don't say such nonsense, Daniil tried to intervene. But his daughter seemed not to hear him. I'm telling the truth, Dad. Inga pressed herself even closer to Nina. Mom gave birth to me. Mom loves me just because I'm her daughter, not because of my grades. And Paulina only takes care of me because you married her. Nina smiled awkwardly, but she did not stop her daughter. In fact, Paulina noticed the satisfied look in her eyes, as if she were enjoying the moment. Inga, please, Paulina said quietly. Let's not make our family matters public. What's wrong with that? Inga looked at her stepmother defiantly. I'm just telling the truth. I only have one mother, and it's not you. There was a cruelty in Inga's voice that Paulina had either never noticed before or had refused to notice. How many times over the years had her stepdaughter snapped at her, been rude, or deliberately ignored her requests? And every time Paulina had blamed it on adolescence, on identity struggles, on anything at all, anything except admitting the obvious. Fine. Paulina smiled. I understand. She turned around and silently headed toward the exit. Her heels echoed loudly across the floor. She could not stop. One more second, and she would have burst into tears right there in front of everyone. Paulina. Her husband caught up with her in the hallway. Please, wait. What am I supposed to wait for, Danya? She asked. You heard her. I'm a stranger. 16 years, and I'm still a stranger. She didn't mean it that way, he said helplessly. It's graduation day. She got emotional when she saw her mother. Didn't mean it that way? Paulina laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Then what exactly did she mean? That she loves me but is too embarrassed to say it? Danielle said nothing. And that silence was more telling than any words. Fine. Paulina took her car keys from her purse. Stay and celebrate the graduation. I need to be alone. She spent hours driving through the evening streets of Moscow, thinking about how long and how cruelly she had deceived herself. She bought Inga expensive gifts, paid for tutors, took her to doctors, helped with homework. And the girl had simply taken advantage of her kindness, knowing she could always hurt and humiliate her stepmother. For 2 hours, Paulina drove around the city. She stopped by the embankment and stood by the water. She needed to gather her thoughts and make a decision. Was 16 years a long time or a short time? 16 years of love that turned out to be unwanted. When she returned home, only Daniil was there. He was sitting on the living room couch, holding a glass of water. Where's Inga? Paulina asked. She went to her mother's house, he answered quietly. Nina said they would celebrate graduation there. Apparently the whole family gathered. There was so much pain in his voice that Paulina wanted to cry. Danya, I'm sorry. He looked up at her. I'm sorry I couldn't, that she turned out this way. I thought that if I never said anything bad about Nina, if I never turned Inga against her, she would eventually understand who was really taking care of her. He lowered his head. But the opposite happened. Paulina sat beside him. She understood that this was even harder for him than it was for her. For Daniil, it was just as painful a blow. It's not your fault. She shook her head. We both wanted what was best. I saw how much you suffered all these years, he continued. I saw how she snapped at you, and I did nothing. I thought it would pass. I thought she would understand when she grew up. He paused. But today I realized we were wrong. Daniil took his wife's hand. Whatever decision you make, I'll stand by your side. You spent too many years tolerating things you never deserved. Those words meant more to Paulina than all the apologies in the world. Thank you, she said quietly. For being with me. Paulina woke up at 6:30 in the morning, even though the alarm was set for 7. Her sleep had been restless, filled with fragments of the previous day. Daniil was still asleep. She quietly slipped out of bed, walked into the kitchen, turned on the coffee machine, and sat at the table with her laptop. Everything had to be carefully thought through. The apartment near Chisty Prudy was still registered in her name. She had planned to transfer it to her stepdaughter as a gift on her 18th birthday. The bank account as well. Legally, everything was clear. There should be no complications. At 6:30, Daniil woke up. He walked into the kitchen and silently placed a cup under the coffee machine. You're already awake? He asked. I've been thinking. About what exactly? About the fact that I was a fool for 16 years. She looked at him. For 16 years, I convinced myself that patience and love would win. That if I were good enough, caring enough, Inga would love me. You were a wonderful mother, Daniil said. A stepmother, Paulina corrected him. A stranger, as it turns out. She took a deep breath. But enough. At exactly 8 o'clock, she called the bank. The VIP client service department opened at 8 a.m. Good morning, Elena Andreevna. This is Paulina Sergeyevna Koltsova. I need to block the additional card linked to my account. She recited the card number. Yes, that one. And please transfer all the funds to the primary account today. The second call was to the property management company. Good morning, Svetlana Petrovna. Regarding the apartment near Chisty Prudy. Yes, that one. I need the locks changed before noon, if possible. Daniil listened silently. When his wife finished the call, he asked. Are you sure? Absolutely. And if she realizes she was wrong? If she asks for forgiveness? Paulina looked at her husband. She could see how difficult it had been for him to choose her side over his daughter's. Danya, how many times over the years has she apologized? He thought for a moment. Many times. And what changed? Nothing. She behaved for a week, and then everything started all over again. Exactly. And every time I believed things would be different. But not once, do you hear me? Not once, were my hopes justified. Around 10 o'clock, Nina called unexpectedly. Paulina, she stammered nervously. What's going on? Inga can't withdraw money from her card. The ATM says the account is blocked. Then it's blocked, Paulina replied calmly. What? Unblock it immediately. What are you doing? The girl hasn't done anything wrong. She's not guilty of anything. Not guilty? Paulina gave a short laugh. Interesting point of view. Of course she's not. She simply told the truth. I'm her mother, and I always will be. Wonderful. I completely agree. Then go live happily together. What exactly do you want from me? As it turns out, I'm a stranger to her. And now that stranger has decided not to financially support someone else's child. You have no right. Nina shrieked. That's the child's money. No, Nina. It's my money. Money that I earned myself, and I have every right to spend it however I choose. You're taking revenge on a child? I'm not taking revenge. I'm simply bringing my life into line with reality. If Inga means nothing to me, then I'm not obligated to spend money on her. And the apartment? Nina's voice trembled. What about it? Inga says she was informed that the locks are being changed. That's correct. The locks will be changed today. It's my apartment, Nina. My property. Property that I've decided not to give away. But her belongings are there. Her documents. You can collect everything before 3 o'clock this afternoon. If you don't, I'll have it all thrown out. What a horrible person you are, Nina snapped. Maybe. But at least now I'm no longer trying to please someone who despises me. Does Daniil even know about this? Daniil fully supports my decision. He's tired of his daughter's ingratitude too. Paulina hung up and blocked Nina's number. Silence filled the apartment. How long do you think it'll take before Inga calls us? Paulina asked. 2 hours, Daniil replied. 3 at most. He was right. At noon, the doorbell rang. Paulina looked through the peephole and saw her stepdaughter. She's here, she told her husband. Paulina opened the door. May I come in? The girl asked quietly. Come in. Inga walked into the living room, where her father was waiting. He looked at her carefully. Dad, she began, what's happening? Why doesn't my card work? Why were the locks in the apartment changed? Sit down, Danielle said firmly. We need to talk. Inga obediently sat in an armchair and placed her bag on the floor. You know, daughter, her father began, I think it's time for you to learn the truth. The whole truth. What truth? About your mother. About the kind of wife and mother she really was. He sighed. For many years, I kept silent. I protected her reputation so that you wouldn't suffer. But after yesterday, I realized it's time to stop. Paulina sat beside her husband. She had no idea what exactly he was going to tell their daughter. Your mother cheated on me with my childhood friend, Danielle admitted calmly. And when you were 6 months old, she told me she loved him, not me. She wanted to be with him. Inga turned pale. But he had one condition. No children. Do you know what your beloved mother did? He looked directly at his daughter. She agreed. She agreed to give up her own daughter for the sake of a man. That's not true, Inga whispered. It is true. She was ready to put you in an orphanage. I took you and left. I raised you by myself. My parents helped me, and so did Aunt Anya. Then I met Paulina. Daniel took his wife's hand. Paulina could have chosen anyone. She was the daughter of wealthy parents, beautiful, intelligent. Men lined up to date her. But she chose us, me, a taxi driver with a child in his arms, and you. Inga remained silent. Tears streamed down her cheeks. When we got married, she could have had children of her own. But she didn't. She decided to win your love first. She waited for you to accept her. He paused. She waited for years, Inga. And all that time, you kept running to the mother who gave you nothing. The mother who appeared once every 6 months and asked for money every single time. Dad, don't interrupt. You know how many times Paulina cried at night because of you? Because you were rude to her, pushed her away, and told people in front of guests that she wasn't your mother? And she endured it all. She covered for your precious mother whenever Nina failed to show up for your birthdays. She bought gifts and told you they were from Nina. Paulina flinched. She had never known that Daniel noticed all of that. And what was the result, he continued. 16 years of care, love, and patience. And yesterday you publicly trampled all of it. You called the woman who was your real mother a stranger. That's not what I meant, Inga sobbed. Yes, it is, Daniel replied firmly. That is exactly what you meant, because that's how you truly feel. We raised you, educated you, and gave you everything we could. Our duty to you has been fulfilled. In 2 weeks, you turn 18. He paused. Now live your own life. Dad, please, Inga begged. I understand now. I know I was wrong. I'll never do it again. You won't? Daniel smirked bitterly. How many times have you said that? 10? 20? 100? And every time, the same thing happened again. But now I really understand. You only understand because you lost the money and the apartment. If you hadn't lost them, you wouldn't have understood anything. He shook his head. So I'm sorry, daughter. You missed your chance. Inga turned toward her stepmother. Paulina, please say something. I know I was stupid, but you can't do this to me. Paulina looked at the girl she had considered her daughter for 16 years. And she felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Only emptiness. I can, she said calmly. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. But I'll be good. I'll love you. For the money? Paulina asked quietly. Or for the apartment? She shook her head. No, thank you. I don't need purchased love. I'm sorry. For another half hour, Inga tried to argue. She apologized. She promised she would change. But her parents remained firm. Eventually, she picked up her bag and left. That evening, Paulina asked her husband. Do you think we did the right thing? I still feel uneasy. Yes, Danielle answered firmly. 100%. Because right now she's sitting with her mother, talking about how terrible you are. Don't think about them. They don't deserve it. He smiled and took her hand. Instead, let's think about something else. I'm 38. You're 38. We're still young. And I really want children, our children. I'm sure we can make it happen. Paulina smiled. So do I. A year later, a daughter was born into their family. She was tiny, rosy-cheeked, with her father's eyes and her mother's chin. Paulina looked at the baby and cried with happiness. That moment was worth waiting 40 years for. Inga called only occasionally, usually when she needed money. Paulina politely refused and ended the conversation. Every day, she rocked her daughter in her arms and thought about how justice eventually finds its way. For 16 years, she had given her love to someone who never valued it. Now she held in her arms someone who would love her simply because she existed. And for happiness, that was more than enough. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.